Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be seduction. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I've got an email. This is from a guy who he's read 3% Man 4 times. It's a really good email, actually. There's just so many things from my book that are happening in this particular situation with this woman that he met. He met her in church, of all places, approached her. I mean, literally did exactly what I teach in my book. Approached her, told her exactly, just blurted out exactly what he thought about her, what he felt about her. They started chatting, ended up spending the whole day together, and then it ended in the indoor Olympics. And all throughout their interactions, you could tell she's in the middle of a divorce, and her ex is calling her, she says gaslighting her. And as I talk about in 3% Man, part of the problem when you get involved with somebody whose divorce isn't finalized, or like in this case, they're in the middle of a divorce, or somebody that just had a breakup and the ex is in the background, their emotions are going to be hot and cold. And so you really see the importance of employing what Thich Nhat Hanh says, or used to say, I should say. You must love in such a way that the person you love feels free. And so this guy's done a masterful job of employing the 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But you can tell at the end of the email, he's a little frustrated because he likes the girl. But as he tries to spend more time with her, she's kind of pushing him away, even though she still contacts him. But he's doing a great job. So for those of you that are, because I know you can't help when or who you meet or what their situation is. But if you play your cards right, like especially in this case, you become an escape for her for what's going on in her life. Obviously, she's not happy talking to the ex. As soon as she thinks she's doing well for the day, he calls her, he gaslights her. I think he probably still wants to get back together with her. More than likely, she's probably the one driving this divorce. But you can have a lot of fun and create the conditions where, especially if the other guy is pursuing her, he'll drive her right into your arms. And the emailer even mentions that it seems like that's what's going on. But that's why it's so important. You can't put any pressure, and you got to let her come to you at her pace. Because if you try to force things or you get impatient, it just blows up in your face, and then you get ghosted and you get nowhere. So let's go through his email. He says, "Hey, Corey, not sure if I ever heard you address this topic." Well, it is a big topic from the book, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And as I talk about in the book, getting involved with somebody that's in the middle of a divorce, or because I've done so many emails over the years, some emails where the women are living with their ex-husbands to be still and carrying on a relationship with the guy that's sent in the email, or guys I've done phone sessions with. And then what happens is they bounce back and forth between the new guy and the ex. And that's why it's also helpful in these situations to keep your options open. Because if you're looking for a relationship, you have to recognize that right now, at this particular moment in time, she's not the greatest person to be getting involved with, just because things can be sailing along great, and all of a sudden she backs up, says, I can't do this, and then she wants to break it off. And if you're into the girl and your emotions are getting involved, that's like you get raked over the coals emotionally. So it's not a lot of fun. And that's why I would recommend, especially if you're relatively new to 3% Man, that you have other options, because it makes it increasingly difficult, because she's basically got all the power and leverage. She's got the new guy and she's got the ex. He says, I met a girl 3 weeks ago at church. I walked up to her and simply said, hey, you're absolutely stunning. What is your name? I mean, it's like right from the book. He tells her exactly what he thinks of her, gives a compliment. It communicates his romantic interest. And then he goes in to ask her what her name is. I assume without volunteering his. And then she asks him. So he says, we small talked and ended up spending the whole day together downtown, drinking and getting to know each other. Eventually, I secured a victory in the indoor Olympics at her place. So he created an instant date, which is another thing that I talk about in the book. And that's the beauty when you apply what's in 3% Man. You never know when these things are going to happen. You just see a girl at church, boom, next thing you know, You're spending the whole day together on a date, and then it ends up in indoor Olympics at her place. The catch is that she said she was grieving a divorce, and the ex was in the background gaslighting and contacting her, and she wasn't ready to date. Remember, all love affairs, all romances, all relationships start as a casual hanging out, having fun, and hooking up. Again, that's why I created the formula. Hang out, have fun, hook up. Simple as that. No relationships. Not even talking about dating necessarily, because, I mean, it turned into a date, but he just created an instant opportunity for sex to happen. That's all a date really is. And remember, whatever a woman feels with you when she's with you is what she's going to associate with being with you. He says, nevertheless, we set up another date. I took your advice, and we did multiple things. So we went to 2-3 different places, because each different place you go is like another date, because most guys go pick a girl for dinner, and then they take her home. He says, we went for a walk in the park, and then grabbed dinner and listened to music. We passionately made out in the parking lot. We wanted to sleep together again, but she told me not tonight. She needed more time to get to know me. I remember one time, this is back in my late 20s, I met this girl, and we were hanging out, and then we ended up hooking up in my office at the end of I think it was actually our second date. And then I remember, actually it was after we had a first date, and then we ended up hooking up at the second date. But I remember I was making plans for the second date. We ended up having sex in my office. And I remember when I had called her, actually she had called me, as a matter of fact, to set up the second date. I was like, well, what's your address? She's like, I don't know you well enough to have you come to my, actually, no, I'm taking it back. It was the third date. So we'd already slept together at this point. And she said, after we had been having sex in my office, she's like, I don't know you well enough to have you come to my house yet. I remember chuckling at that. This is what it reminds me of. You're giving me flashbacks, man. He says, I did not over pursue. I used the phone only to contact her to set up times to see her. Since that date, she went to Nashville and we didn't speak. 3 days later, I reached out to ask when she was free. She made excuses about she didn't know her plans. So you can tell her emotions are all over the place. And this is the difficulty getting involved with women that are in the middle of a divorce, or because their emotions are everywhere. You're having sex one day, and the next day it's like, I don't know what my plans are. So when she said she didn't know what her plans were, he says, I didn't respond. And then she texted me later that week referencing Top Golf. I use that as that means we got to work on the golf swing of yours. When are you free? She left me on read and ignored the text. So it's like she's just kind of fishing. Oh, he's still interested. He says, I didn't reach out or double text. And this is exactly what you do. Dating is like tennis. You hit the ball over the net. You got to wait for her to hit it back. Now, under normal circumstances with high interest, you're not going to have to be dealing with this. But he's involved with a woman who's in the middle of a divorce. And this is what happens. You're all excited to see her. We were just having sex the other day. Now it's like, I can't get together. He says, that Sunday, I saw her at church again. Played it cool. And we ended up going for another walk, grabbing coffee, and then getting lunch and beer. She told me she had been distant because the ex was in the background blowing up her phone. This is so predictable. So I told myself I was doing everything right. He's just pushing her into my arms. Practice infinite patience like Corey teaches. Bingo. Good job, dude. You're doing phenomenal, by the way, and you should pat yourself in the back, because this is not an easy situation for most guys, especially dudes only been through the book 4 times. So you're doing a good job at reading comprehension so far. After lunch, we ended up back at her place, rearranging her furniture, and had some fun. I kept in mind the approach of 2 steps forward and 1 step back all night. Then we rearranged some other things, but I was able to seduce her and participate in the indoor Olympics. Afterwards, I said, call me later. So as I discuss in the book, which if you're new, if this is one of the first videos you've seen, you can read 3% Man at understandingrelationships.com. Just subscribe to the email newsletter. You can read it right in your browser on whatever device you're on. So what happens is you keep moving forward until you experience resistance. Maybe you're kissing, maybe you're making out, your hands are wandering, and then they go a little too far, and then she stops you. Now, most guys that don't know any better, they think, well, that's it, I'm not getting laid, and then they just give up. All it really means is you're going a little too fast, and you need to slow down, back up a little bit. That's hence the 2 steps forward. In other words, you keep moving forward until you encounter resistance. Then you take a step back. You refocus on conversation and talking, getting her to talk. And then a little while later, you start making out, heavy petting, start moving things, removing items of clothing, things of that nature. And again, each time I go into extensive detail in the book and really explain this process, but this guy's just done a masterful job of applying it. He's a good student so far. Don't get cocky. You got to read the book 10 to 15 times because this is just the seduction part. You got to learn the pickup skills, the dating skills, and the relationship skills. The next day, she texted me about a friend that was looking for someone to date and that if I knew someone. A text or two later, she told me she was upset with herself for what we did. He says, not me. She says, oh, you're upset? He's like, you know what? I can help you with your grief therapy. We should get together. As you said, when a woman contacts, assume she wants to see you. Yep. So I said, hey, it seems like your emotions are everywhere when you're free to meet up and talk about it. This was her response. I am just not ready to do what we were doing together. I really needed time to be alone, and that's when I am the happiest right now and at peace. I'm really sorry, but I can't see you because I know I'll let my guard down. I would have probably said, well, I don't want you to torture yourself by staying away from me. Don't want you to get any Corey withdrawals. So, I mean, all it's saying, that's your resistance there. She still likes you. She's still into you, but emotionally, she's not ready. And the only thing that really matters with women is how they feel about you. In that moment, because the ex is in the background, this is what happens. I know it's frustrating as hell because under normal circumstances, you wouldn't have to be dealing with this. Unless, of course, you're dealing with a woman that's a Fruit Loop. But in this particular case, she's in the middle of a divorce. So I warn in the book. I was like, this is exactly what happens. But you can have a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, how awesome is that? The guy read my book 4 times so far, created an instant date at church of all places, and then he's later. It's like, you have to go to confession, and I was born and raised Catholic, so I'm sure the religious people are going, Corey, that's naughty. You shouldn't be teaching these things. I'm just the messenger. I'm the coach. I'm here to help you get what you want. Your morals and your religion that's between you and the big man upstairs. My question is, isn't it the man's job to be the protector and seduce the woman to where she feels she can let her guard down, her emotional rock? That is true, but you're not in a relationship with her. You've only hung out 2, maybe 3 times. So at the end of the day, like I talk about in the book, your job is just to create an opportunity for sex to happen. And you're employing 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because you're also dealing with a woman that's in the middle of a divorce. So she's not going to be behaving like other women would be behaving that are normal and healthy and don't have an ex in the background. Under normal circumstances, if a woman's contacting you and there's no ex in the background and you invite her to get together, she's going to be excited. That's why she reached out. So there's no reason to beat yourself up or get impatient. And I could tell there's a little bit of impatience and frustration on his part, which is understandable. But I warned you in the book, this is what happens. But it's a great example for everybody else to watch and listen to. Because, I mean, these things are going to happen. I've encountered this many times. That's how I learned this stuff. So it's not you. It really is them in this case. He says, it just sucks because I've been following your book and I'm on my 4th read and I've done everything right. Yeah, so far, dude, I don't see one mistake in here. Everything you've done is textbook, so pat yourself in the back. And there's no reason to beat yourself up. You have to take a step back and look at the situation and see it as it is. Not worse than it is, which it seems like that's kind of where you want to go, or better than it is, but just as it is. That's why it would be really helpful if you had some other candidates, some other women to spend your time with. He says, I'm just going to say, I understand. Let me know if you change your mind. That's all you have to do. You invite her to do something, and then if she says no, say, cool. Well, when you miss me terribly, I would love to hear from you so we can get together. I want to see you. I want to see those beautiful lips of yours again, or whatever it happens to be. So good job, dude. Pat yourself in the back. You got to be patient. Don't beat yourself up over it. You're doing amazing. Infinite patience. Remember, the goal is to go slightly slower than she is. And that's why you were successful at the Indoor Olympics. And a guy that hadn't read my book, he would have got nowhere with her. He would have probably gotten the phone number, tried to set a date, gotten frustrated, pissed off at her, and then she would have blocked him or ghosted him. But this guy was smooth as silk, man. So awesome job. I'm proud of you. So if you got a question or a challenge and you'd like to get my help, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen on any page, and book a coaching session with yours truly. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.